It was one of those nights when New York felt like it had no mercy left. The wind screamed through the empty streets, slicing through layers of clothes and hearts alike. A black luxury car rolled slowly along the corner of 47th Street, its tinted windows shutting out the world. Inside sat Vincent Moretti, a man everyone feared, a Mafia boss whose name was whispered in the dark. But next to him sat his 7-year-old son, Luca, wide-eyed and innocent. As the car stopped at a red light, Luca's gaze caught something outside. A woman, thin, trembling, was crouched beside a pile of cardboard boxes. In her arms, she held a baby wrapped in a dirty blanket. Snow gathered on the child's face. The baby wasn't moving. Luca gasped, "Dad, her baby. He's freezing to death." Vincent didn't look. He gripped the steering wheel harder, his knuckles white. He told himself not to get involved. The world outside wasn't his problem. But Luca's voice trembled again, softer this time. "Please, Dad, we have to help." For a moment, Vincent felt a pang deep in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years, a flicker of memory, another winter night, another tiny hand gone cold. His pulse quickened. He slammed the car door open, the cold biting his skin as he approached the woman. She lifted her head weakly, her eyes dull from exhaustion. "Please, just help my baby," she whispered. Vincent hesitated. Mafia bosses didn't save strangers, but something about that desperate mother and her still child tore through his armor. He took off his coat and wrapped it around them, and as he did, his life, the one built on control, power, and fear, quietly began to crack. "Sir, please don't let my baby die," she whispered again. That plea would haunt Vincent forever. Her name was Elena Rivera, but to the world that night, she was just another homeless face among thousands. Once, she had been a nurse, a woman who cared for others with steady hands and a warm smile. But life, as it often does, had stripped her of everything. Her husband had died in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving her alone and pregnant. The bills piled up, the apartment disappeared, and soon, so did the people who once promised to help. Now she sat on a frozen sidewalk, clutching her newborn, Noah, praying he would make it through the night. Her lips were cracked, her fingers blue. She had walked all day looking for shelter, but every door had closed in her face. By the time she reached 47th Street, she could barely stand. When the dark car stopped beside her, she thought it was just another man passing by. But then, out stepped Vincent, tall, cold-eyed, wearing a coat that probably cost more than she'd earned in a year. His presence radiated power, danger, and something else she couldn't name. "Give me the baby," he ordered, his voice low and sharp. Elena flinched. "Please, don't take him from me." Vincent froze for a second, stunned. He had only wanted to help, but the fear in her voice, the way she clutched her child like he was the last piece of her soul, hit him harder than he expected. "I'm not taking him," he said quietly. "I'm saving him." Her eyes filled with tears, disbelief mixed with fragile hope. When he lifted Noah, the baby's tiny chest barely rose. Vincent felt panic crawl up his spine. He turned to his driver. "Start the car." Now, as the engine roared to life, Vincent glanced at Elena. "Get in," he said. She hesitated, because accepting help from a man like him could change her life forever. The car's heater blasted warm air, but Elena still couldn't stop shaking. She sat in the back seat, holding baby Noah close while Vincent sat across from her, his sharp eyes studying every move she made. Luca leaned against his father, whispering softly, "Dad, is the baby going to be okay?" Vincent didn't answer. He couldn't. The sight of that fragile child stirred something buried deep inside him, memories of another baby, another night, and a hospital room filled with silence. He clenched his jaw and focused forward. "We'll get him help," he said firmly. Elena looked out the window as city lights flashed by, her reflection pale and hollow. "Why are you helping us?" she asked quietly. Vincent didn't look at her. "Because my son asked me to." The honesty of his words caught her off guard. She stared at the man who looked like he'd never done a kind thing in his life, and yet here he was, saving hers. They pulled up to a private clinic. The security guards recognized Vincent instantly and rushed to open the doors. No questions asked. Money and fear had that effect. Inside, nurses took Noah from Elena's trembling arms. For the first time that night, she exhaled, her body collapsing into the chair. Vincent stood near the window, watching the snowfall outside. He didn't understand why he cared. He'd paid off doctors, saved criminals, even ended lives. But saving a stranger felt different, wrong, but also right. When the doctor came out and said, "The baby will be fine," Vincent saw Elena's tears fall silently. Gratitude, exhaustion, relief, all tangled in one broken expression. Vincent turned to leave, adjusting his coat. "You're safe now," he said. But as he reached the door, Elena's voice stopped him. "Sir, what do I owe you for this?" He paused. Nothing. Yet he didn't know this wouldn't be the last time their paths crossed, and that saving her tonight would cost him far more than money. Morning light slipped through the blinds of the small hospital room, painting soft lines across the white sheets. Elena woke to the sound of Noah's gentle breathing beside her. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't afraid to close her eyes. The doctor had said he'd be fine, just malnourished, weak, but alive. That word alone made her cry again. When she looked around, she noticed a folded note on the bedside table. No name, just 2 words written in strong handwriting, "You're safe." Beside it lay an envelope. Inside, $10,000 in cash. Her chest tightened. She didn't need to guess who had left it, but she didn't want charity, not from a man like him. She'd seen the way everyone bowed when he walked past, the fear in their eyes. That wasn't a good man. It was a dangerous one. A nurse entered quietly. "Mr. Moretti said you can stay here until your baby is stronger." Elena looked down at her hands. "Mr. Moretti, is that his name?" The nurse nodded. "Yes, Vincent Moretti. He owns this place. You're lucky he found you lucky." The word didn't feel right. It felt complicated. Later that morning, as she fed Noah, Elena saw the black car again through the window. Vincent stood outside, talking to someone on the phone. He looked powerful, confident, like he belonged to a different world. Yet when he noticed her watching, he hesitated. And for a brief second, the mask of the Mafia boss slipped. She saw sadness there. Real, human sadness. He gave a small nod before getting into the car. Elena whispered to herself, "Why would a man like that care about me?" But deep down, she already knew. Because pain recognizes pain, and maybe, just maybe, he had saved her to save himself. 3 days passed before Elena was strong enough to walk again. The clinic staff treated her gently, but she could sense the fear that came with Vincent Moretti's name. Every nurse moved quickly when he entered. Every doctor lowered their tone. He wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful. The kind of man people obeyed without question. When Vincent finally returned, he found Elena sitting by the window, Noah sleeping peacefully in her arms. She looked different now. Clean clothes, hair brushed, eyes clearer, but the weight of hardship still lingered in her expression. "You're healing," he said quietly. She nodded. "Thanks to you and your son." Vincent's gaze softened at the mention of Luca. He has a soft heart. His mother used to be that way too. Elena noticed the slight tremor in his voice. "Used to?" she asked. Vincent turned away. "She passed away 5 years ago. Winter, pneumonia. Luca was just a baby." The room fell silent. Elena looked at him differently then, not as a dangerous man, but as someone who had also lost everything. "I owe you my life," she said. "Tell me how I can repay you." He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just take care of that boy." But Elena wasn't someone who accepted charity easily. Please, she insisted. Let me work. I can clean, cook, anything. I need to earn it. Vincent studied her face, surprised by her determination. Most people took his money and disappeared. She was different, too proud, too honest for this city. Finally, he said, "There's an old guest house near my estate. It's empty. You can stay there and help the staff until you're back on your feet." Elena hesitated, torn between fear and hope. Accepting his offer meant stepping into his world, a world that could either save her completely or destroy her all over again. Elena had never seen a house like it before. Vincent's mansion sat high above the Hudson River, its tall iron gates opening to a world she never imagined existed. The driveway stretched endlessly, lined with marble statues and silent guards who watched every move. To her, it felt less like a home and more like a fortress. She clutched baby Noah tightly as the car stopped in front of the grand entrance. Luca ran out to greet them, his smile the only warm thing in sight. "You came," he said, hugging her leg. "Dad said you'd stay with us." Elena smiled faintly. "Only for a while, sweetheart." Inside, the house gleamed. Chandeliers, polished floors, walls lined with paintings worth more than her old life combined. The staff moved quietly, respectful but nervous. She noticed how they avoided Vincent's gaze, as if even looking too long was dangerous. He led her to the guest house, a smaller cottage behind the mansion. "You'll stay here," he said simply. "Food and clothes will be sent daily. You can help Mrs. Alden." My housekeeper, Elena, nodded, though part of her wanted to refuse. She didn't belong here. Every polished surface reminded her she was an outsider. Still, when she looked down at Noah's sleeping face, she knew she had no choice. That night, she stood by the window, watching the main house glow faintly through the snow. She could see Vincent's silhouette on the balcony, a man alone with ghosts only he could see. She whispered to herself, "You saved us, but what are you trying to save yourself from?" Just then, a shadow moved near the gate. Someone watching the estate from afar, a cigarette burning in the dark. Elena didn't know it yet, but stepping into Vincent's mansion meant stepping straight into the storm of his secret life. Days passed quietly in the Moretti mansion, but silence there was never peace. It was tension disguised as calm. Elena worked alongside the housekeeper, Mrs. Alden, cleaning rooms that felt too perfect to touch. Every corner of the mansion told a story she wasn't supposed to hear. Late at night, footsteps echoed in the halls, men's voices murmuring behind closed doors. The smell of cigar smoke and fear lingered. Luca often visited the guest house, bringing laughter to the cold place. He loved playing with baby Noah, calling himself Big Brother. For Elena, those moments were light in the darkness, but every time Vincent entered the room, the air shifted. He carried power like a shadow, quiet, but impossible to ignore. One evening, while setting the table, Elena overheard two guards whispering near the corridor. "The boss is losing his patience," one said. "The deal with the Russians went bad. Someone snitched." "Who?" the other asked. "Nobody knows." "But he's furious. Someone's going to pay." Elena froze. A chill ran down her spine. She had known Vincent was dangerous, but hearing it made it real. The man who saved her baby was also capable of destroying lives without blinking. That night, as she walked back to the guest house, she saw Vincent outside near the garden, talking on the phone, his tone harsh and cold. "Find him before midnight," he said. No second chances. When he noticed her standing nearby, he ended the call abruptly. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "I couldn't sleep," she replied softly. He looked at her for a long moment, the hard edge in his eyes softening. "Neither can I." For a second, she thought she saw the man behind the title, a lonely father, haunted, human. But from the darkness behind the trees, another pair of eyes watched them, recording every move they made. The next morning began with unease. Snow fell thick and heavy outside, but inside the Moretti estate the tension was sharper than ever. Vincent was gone before dawn, leaving behind a house filled with whispers. Elena noticed extra guards patrolling the gates and strange cars parked near the woods. Something was happening, something dangerous. Mrs. Alden warned her quietly, "Don't ask questions, dear. In this house, knowing too much can get you hurt." Elena nodded, but fear started to settle deep inside her chest. She only wanted safety for Noah, nothing more. But safety, she was beginning to realize, didn't exist around men like Vincent Moretti. That afternoon, as she hung laundry outside the guest house, she felt it. Someone watching her. She turned quickly, her heart jumping. A tall man in a black coat stood near the trees. His face was half hidden by the snow, but his stare was unmistakable. Cold, familiar. "Elena?" he called softly. Her blood froze. She hadn't heard that voice in almost a year. It was Marco, her late husband's brother, the man who had promised to help her after the funeral, and instead disappeared with what little money she had left. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. He stepped closer, his smile thin. "I heard you're staying with Moretti. That's dangerous company for someone like you. He's not saving you, Elena. He's using you." "That's not true." "Oh, it's true. Men like him don't help for free." His tone dripped with venom. "And trust me, you don't want to know what he's done." Before she could respond, one of Vincent's guards appeared, gun half drawn. "Get away from the lady," he barked. Marco vanished into the trees without another word. Elena stood trembling, clutching her baby. She didn't know who to fear more, the ghost from her past or the man who now controlled her future. That night, the mansion felt colder than the snow outside. Elena couldn't sleep. Marco's words echoed in her mind like a curse. "He's not saving you. He's using you." She tried to shake them off, but fear gnawed at her heart. What if he was right? What if Vincent's kindness came with a hidden price? Around midnight, she heard footsteps approaching the guest house. Her pulse raced. She held Noah tightly and whispered a prayer. Then came a soft knock. "Elena," a familiar voice called. "It's me." It was Vincent. She opened the door slowly. He looked exhausted, his eyes shadowed from sleeplessness. "I heard there was an intruder near your quarters," he said. "You're safe now." "My men are handling it." Elena hesitated. "It was Marco," she said finally. "My husband's brother. He said terrible things about you." Vincent's jaw tightened. "He works for people who want me dead. If he comes near you again, tell me immediately." "Why?" she asked softly. "Why would he care about me?" Vincent looked away. "Because hurting you would hurt me. And they know that now." His words made her breath catch. There was something raw in his tone, something real. But before she could respond, he added, "You need to trust me, Elena. This house isn't safe, not until I find out who's after us." She searched his eyes, trying to read the truth behind them. "I don't know who to trust anymore," she whispered. Vincent stepped closer, his voice low. "Then trust what you feel." For a fleeting moment, their eyes met. Two broken souls bound by fear and something they didn't dare name. Then, from outside, a loud crash shattered the moment. The lights flickered, guards shouted, and gunfire echoed from the front gate. Elena froze, realizing danger wasn't coming. It was already here. The sound of gunfire tore through the night like thunder. Elena's scream was drowned by the chaos outside, the shouting of guards, the crunch of boots on snow, the echo of bullets ricocheting off steel. She clutched Noah to her chest and fell to the floor as glass shattered across the room. Vincent grabbed her arm. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice sharp, commanding. He pulled out a gun from his coat and moved toward the window. His calmness was terrifying, the kind of control that only came from years of living in violence. "Who are they?" Elena cried. He didn't answer, only peeked through the curtains. Black vans were parked by the gate, men in masks flooding the property. He recognized the insignia instantly. The Rossi Syndicate, Old enemies he thought had vanished. Rage flared in his chest. "Luca!" he shouted. "I'm here, Dad!" The boy's frightened voice came from the hallway. Vincent ran and lifted him into his arms. "We're going to the cellar. Move!" Elena followed, heart hammering, as the mansion trembled under the assault. The guards fought back fiercely, but the attackers kept coming. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. Down in the cellar, Vincent locked the heavy steel door and turned to Elena. "Stay here with the kids. Don't open this door for anyone but me, understand?" She grabbed his arm. "Vincent, you'll be killed." He looked at her with that same unreadable calm. "I've survived worse." But before he could turn away, she said quietly, "Don't die for me." He paused, eyes softening for just a heartbeat. "I'm not dying for you," he whispered. "I'm living because of you." Then he was gone, back into the storm of gunfire and vengeance. Elena held Noah close, hearing every shot, praying that the man who saved her once would somehow make it out alive. Upstairs, the mansion had turned into a war zone. Vincent moved like a ghost through the smoke and chaos, firing with precision, barking orders to his men. Every shot was a heartbeat closer to either survival or death. The Rossi syndicate had come for blood, and they wouldn't leave without it. He ducked behind a marble pillar, reloading as glass exploded above him. "Keep them away from the east wing," he shouted. His voice carried authority even through the noise. For a moment, he thought about Luca, about Elena hiding in the cellar. That thought was both his weakness and his strength. He couldn't let them be taken, not again. In the kitchen corridor, a masked man lunged at him with a knife. Vincent blocked the attack, slammed the man against the wall, and pulled off the mask, only to freeze. It was Marco. "You?" Vincent hissed. Marco smirked, blood running down his lip. "You should have stayed out of this, Moretti. You took what was ours." "I saved her life," Vincent growled. "She was leverage," Marco spat. "You think you were helping her? You just became her executioner." Rage surged through Vincent, and before he could think, he fired. The bullet hit Marco's shoulder, sending him crashing to the floor. Vincent stood over him, trembling, gun still aimed. "Tell your boss," Vincent said coldly. "If he touches her or my son again, I'll burn his entire empire to the ground." He turned away, leaving Marco bleeding but alive, a warning more powerful than death. When Vincent returned to the cellar hours later, the mansion was silent. Smoke still hung in the air. He opened the steel door slowly. Elena rushed forward, tears streaking her face. "Is it over?" she whispered. He nodded, exhausted. For now. But deep down, Vincent knew. Wars like his never truly ended. They only waited for the next night to begin. By sunrise, the mansion looked nothing like the place Elena had first entered. Windows shattered, walls scorched, traces of blood marking the marble floors. The air still smelled of smoke and gunpowder. Guards moved quietly, collecting weapons and bodies, while Vincent stood outside in the cold, staring at the river. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from everything he tried to hold back. Elena stepped out slowly, Noah asleep in her arms. "You should rest," she said softly. Vincent didn't turn around. "Rest is for people who still have peace." "You protected us," she whispered. "That means something." He finally looked at her, his face pale beneath the bruises. "Do you know how many people I've hurt to build this life?" "Saving you doesn't erase that." Elena's eyes softened. "Then maybe saving us is the first thing that does." He said nothing, only stared at the snow falling into the blood-stained ground. Luca came running and hugged his father's leg tightly. "You're bleeding, Dad," the boy said. Vincent smiled faintly. "Just a scratch." But it wasn't just his body that was bleeding. It was the weight in his heart, heavier than any wound.
Later that day, as workers began cleaning the damage, Elena found a small photo frame in the wreckage, Vincent with a young woman holding baby Luca. The woman's smile was radiant, gentle. On the back of the photo, in faded ink, were the words, "For every winter, there's spring." Elena held it carefully, her throat tightening. She understood now. Vincent wasn't just dangerous, he was broken, still chasing the warmth he'd lost. That night, when she placed the photo quietly on his desk, Vincent said nothing, but his eyes glistened as he whispered, "She would have liked you." And for the first time, Elena realized she wasn't just living in his world. She was becoming part of his reason to live. Weeks passed, and the mansion began to heal, at least on the outside. The broken windows were replaced, the bullet holes patched, but the silence that followed each repair was heavy, filled with unspoken things. Vincent threw himself into work, taking calls behind closed doors, keeping his world of violence at arm's length from Elena and the children. Elena, meanwhile, tried to give Luca and Noah a sense of normalcy. She cooked, cleaned, read bedtime stories. Sometimes, when Vincent came home late, she'd find him standing quietly at the nursery door, watching the boys sleep. Those were the moments when she saw the man he could have been, not the one the world feared. One evening, Vincent joined them for dinner, a rare thing. Luca laughed, talking about school and how he'd taught Noah to say his first word, "Da." The sound made Vincent freeze. Elena smiled gently. "He means you," she said. Vincent looked down at the baby, something breaking softly inside him. "Da," Noah repeated, reaching out with tiny hands. For a brief second, the house felt like a home again, but peace never lasted long in Vincent's world. Later that night, while Elena tucked the children into bed, a black envelope was slipped under the front door. No name. Just one word written in red ink. Payment. Vincent read it alone in his office, his jaw tightening. He knew what it meant. The Rossi syndicate wasn't done. They wanted retribution, and they were going to use Elena to get it. When she came to check on him, he quickly hid the envelope. "Everything all right?" she asked. He forced a smile. "Everything's fine." But as she walked away, Vincent's eyes darkened. He had built walls around his empire for years, but now the war had found its way inside, and the price for peace might be the only thing he couldn't bear to lose. Vincent didn't sleep that night. The word payment burned in his mind like a wound that wouldn't close. He knew exactly what it meant. Someone inside his organization had betrayed him, and now the Rossi syndicate wanted him to pay the debt in blood. But what made his pulse quicken wasn't fear for himself. It was fear for Elena and the children. At dawn, he stood by the window, staring at the rising sun. When Elena entered the room with Noah in her arms, she immediately noticed the exhaustion on his face. "You look like you haven't slept," she said gently. He forced a smirk. "Sleep's a luxury I can't afford." She frowned. "Vincent, if something's wrong, you need to tell me." He hesitated, torn between honesty and protection. "It's nothing you need to worry about," he said finally. "But I want you to take the kids and stay somewhere safe for a few days." Her brows knitted. "Safe? What do you mean?" "I'm not leaving you, Elena," he said firmly. "This isn't a request." Her eyes filled with defiance. "You saved us once, but that doesn't give you the right to decide my life." Vincent stepped closer, his voice soft but shaking. "If anything happened to you, if they touched you or the boys, I couldn't live with it." The raw fear in his tone made her heart tighten. For the first time, she saw the man behind the armor completely exposed. After a long silence, she nodded. "All right. But wherever I go, you promise me one thing. You come back." He gave a faint smile. "That's the plan." As she packed that evening, Elena found the black envelope hidden in his drawer. The single word, payment, sent a chill through her veins, and she finally understood. Vincent wasn't sending her away for safety. He was preparing to face death alone. Snow fell again the next morning, soft and silent, covering the scars of the last attack. Elena stood by the car with Noah in her arms, Luca beside her clutching a small backpack. Vincent was giving last-minute instructions to one of his men, but his eyes kept drifting back to her. He looked like a man preparing for war, not a farewell. "I don't like this," Elena said as he approached. "Running feels like losing." Vincent shook his head. "It's not running. It's protecting what matters." "And what about you?" she asked. "Who protects you?" He smiled faintly. "You already did." That answer made her chest ache. She wanted to say more, to beg him to come with them, but his expression told her it was useless. His mind was made up. He crouched to Luca's level. "Take care of your mom and little brother, all right?" Luca nodded bravely, though his lip trembled. "Will you come soon, Dad?" Vincent hesitated. "Soon," he lied softly, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. When he turned back to Elena, his eyes lingered. There were 1,000 words unsaid between them. Fear, gratitude, something dangerously close to love. "I'll find you when this is over," he said. She reached out, touching his scarred cheek. "Just make sure there's still a you to find." He caught her hand, pressed it to his lips, then stepped back before he could change his mind. The car door closed, the engine started, and the vehicle disappeared into the white haze of morning snow. Vincent stood alone in the driveway, watching until the last trace of them vanished. Then he whispered to himself, "If this is the end, let it mean something." But deep inside, neither of them knew. Their goodbye wasn't an ending at all. It was the calm before the storm that would change everything. Vincent returned to the mansion that afternoon, every step heavier than the last. The snow had stopped, but the world still felt frozen. Inside, the house was eerily quiet, too quiet. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. The guards he trusted most were nowhere to be seen. The hallways empty, the lights dimmed. He drew his gun and moved cautiously down the corridor. Then, from the shadows, a familiar voice echoed, "You really thought you could hide forever, Moretti?" Marco stepped out, bandaged shoulders still bleeding through his shirt, a pistol in hand. Behind him stood 2 Rossi men, their weapons already raised. Vincent's eyes narrowed. "You should have stayed dead," Marco sneered. "Oh, I tried, but your woman gave me a reason to live." Vincent's jaw tightened. "You touch her, you die." Marco laughed, a cruel sound that bounced off the marble walls. "Too late for threats. You think sending her away protects her? She's leverage, Vincent, and she's already being followed." Vincent's chest clenched. "You're lying." "Am I?" Marco smirked, tossing a phone at his feet. The screen lit up with a photo. Elena's car, parked at a gas station, a black SUV in the background. Rage exploded inside him. He lunged, firing twice. One bullet hit Marco's leg, sending him collapsing to the floor. The other gunman returned fire, shattering glass, but Vincent moved faster. In pulse pounded. He grabbed the keys from the dead guard's belt and stormed toward the garage. Because if anything happened to Elena or the children, there would be no mercy left in him, only vengeance. The highway stretched ahead like a ribbon of ice beneath the falling snow. Vincent's car roared through the night, headlights slicing through the darkness. His hands gripped the wheel hard enough to turn his knuckles white. The image of the photo Marco had shown him, the black SUV behind Elena's car, burned in his mind like fire. He called his lieutenant. Track her car. Now, yes, boss. Last signal ping near the North Bridge, but the line cut. Static filled the air. Vincent slammed his fist against the dashboard. No, he muttered. Not them. Not again.
Every mile felt like an eternity. Snow hammered the windshield, but he didn't slow down. His mind replayed every moment. The night he found Elena in the cold, the way Luca had said, "Da." The promise he'd made to come back. He'd already lost one family. He couldn't lose another. Up ahead, flashing lights cut through the snow. A small sedan sat abandoned by the roadside, its door hanging open. His heart stopped. He braked hard, skidding to a halt. "Elena!" he shouted, jumping out into the storm. The wind bit into his skin, but he barely felt it. Then, faintly, a cry, Noah's cry from the trees. He ran toward the sound, his gun drawn. Footprints marked the snow, 2 sets of boots, 1 pair smaller, running, struggling. He followed them into the woods until he saw movement, a man dragging Elena by the arm, her face pale with fear. "Let her go," Vincent roared. The man turned, raising his gun. Vincent fired first. The shot echoed across the trees and the body dropped into the snow. Elena fell to her knees, clutching Noah. Vincent ran to her, breathless, shaking. "Are you hurt?" She looked up, tears mixing with snowflakes. "You came." He pulled her into his arms. "I told you I'd always come." But as headlights glowed behind the trees, Vincent realized it wasn't over. The real enemy was still out there, and this time, they wanted everyone dead. Vincent barely had time to react before the forest exploded with gunfire. Bullets shredded the trees around them, sparks lighting up the snow. He pushed Elena and Noah behind a fallen log, shielding them with his body. "Stay down," he shouted, returning fire toward the lights moving between the trees. Elena clutched Noah tightly, her heart pounding. "Vincent, there's too many." He gritted his teeth. Then they picked the wrong night. More headlights appeared, black SUVs surrounding the clearing. Men in dark coats stepped out, weapons drawn. And then from one of the vehicles, Marco limped forward, supported by 2 Rossi enforcers. His grin was cruel despite the blood on his face. "You never learn, Moretti," he called out. "You can't save her. You can't save anyone." Vincent rose slowly from cover, gun aimed directly at him. "You're right," he said coldly, "but I can make sure you never hurt her again." Marco laughed. "You think this is about her? It's about what you owe. And now you'll pay with them." Vincent's pulse roared in his ears. He couldn't let that happen. He turned to Elena. "When I start shooting, take the kids and run to the car. Don't look back." She shook her head, tears spilling. "I'm not leaving you." He met her gaze, voice breaking. "Please." For them. Then he stepped out into the open, firing fast and precise. The air erupted with chaos, guns blazing, shouts echoing, snow flying like ash. One by one the attackers fell, but Vincent took a hit to the shoulder, stumbling yet refusing to stop. Finally, only Marco remained. The 2 men faced each other in the snow, both bleeding.
both breathing heavy. Marco raised his weapon. Vincent whispered, "Not tonight," and pulled the trigger first. Marco collapsed. The woods fell silent. Vincent dropped to his knees, blood soaking the snow, as Elena ran to him, realizing the man who saved her might not survive the dawn. The night was eerily quiet after the final shot. Snow kept falling, soft and endless, as if trying to bury the violence beneath its white silence. Elena dropped to her knees beside Vincent, her hands trembling as she pressed them against the bleeding wound in his chest. "Stay with me," she pleaded. "Please, Vincent, stay." He coughed, blood staining the snow beneath him. "Are they safe?" "Yes," she whispered through tears. "Luca and Noah are safe. You did it." He tried to smile, but his lips barely moved. "Good. That's all that matters." "No," she cried. "You matter. Don't you dare leave me now." Vincent looked up at her, his vision blurring, her face framed by snowflakes. "You remind me of her," he said softly. "The way she looked at me, like there was still something worth saving." Elena shook her head. "Don't talk like that. We're going to get you help." He reached for her hand, gripping it weakly. "Elena, promise me something." "Anything," she whispered. "Raise them to be better than me." "Better than this world." Her tears fell onto his hand. "You'll tell them yourself." He gave a faint, almost peaceful smile. "If I can't, tell them I tried." The sound of sirens grew faint in the distance, Vincent's men finally closing in, but time was slipping through his fingers. He touched her cheek with the last of his strength. "You changed me," he murmured. "You made me remember what it felt like to be human." "Then live," she begged. "Live for that." His eyes met hers one last time, full of warmth and regret. "I already did." His hand fell away, still warm in hers, and the snow began to cover his still body. And as the sirens drew closer, Elena realized that love wasn't always about forever. Sometimes it was about saving someone just long enough to let them find peace. 2 months later, the snow was gone. The river below the Moretti estate shimmered beneath the early spring sun. The mansion had been rebuilt, quieter now, less guarded, as if even the house was trying to start over. Elena stood in the garden with Noah in her arms, watching Luca chase butterflies across the grass. His laughter filled the air, pure, untainted. It was the sound Vincent had once said he wanted to protect more than anything. She still visited his grave every morning. It sat beneath an old oak tree overlooking the river, a simple stone with his name and the words, "For every winter, there's spring." The same phrase that had been written on the back of his old family photo. Today, she brought flowers, white lilies, his favorite. "You'd be proud of them," she whispered. "Luca's learning to read. Noah's saying new words. Sometimes he says duh, and I can't help but think he means you." A gentle breeze swept through, carrying the faint scent of pine. For a moment, she swore she could almost hear his voice, steady, calm, protective, as if he were still watching over them. Mrs. Alden approached quietly from behind. "The lawyers finished the paperwork," she said. "He left everything to you." The estate, the clinic, all of it, Elena looked down, overwhelmed. "He didn't owe me anything." The old woman smiled softly. "He didn't leave it out of debt. He left it because you gave him back his soul." Tears filled Elena's eyes, but they were warm this time, not from grief, but from gratitude. She turned toward the river, sunlight glinting off the water. "Rest now, Vincent," she whispered. "You kept your promise. It's my turn to keep mine." As Luca ran to her, laughing, and Noah reached for the sky, Elena finally understood. Some love stories aren't meant to last forever. They're meant to save us, to heal us, and to remind us that even after the coldest winter, spring always comes. And in that moment, she knew he had never really left. So that's how our story ends. But if you're still here right now, watching until this very moment, then maybe, just maybe, something in this story touched your heart too. You see, Vincent's journey wasn't just about violence or redemption. It was about choice, the choice to be kind, even when the world hasn't been kind to you. The choice to forgive, even when you're broken. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Pain, loss, and struggle, they're not meant to destroy us, but to shape us. Vincent found peace not through power, but through compassion. Elena found healing not through revenge, but through love. And maybe that's what we're all searching for, a little light after the longest winter. So if this story made you feel something, hope, warmth, maybe even tears, don't let it fade. Share it, pass it on, because someone out there might need the reminder that kindness can still change lives. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button, share this video with someone who believes in second chances, and